Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Do it live.
Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Welcome to Wired Axcess Podcast. I'm your host, DJ K-Dub Omaha. We greatly appreciate Hurrdat Sports and all they do for Wired Axcess and allowing us to record this podcast in their studio. And today, I'm welcoming another part of their staff. It's actually my producer, but it's also someone that is above and beyond a producer. And I want to bring him on not only because he's my producer, but also just if you're watching Hurrdat Sports, you see this guy, but it ain't just Hurrdat Sports. It's across sports all around. Austin Jacobsen, welcome to the show, man.
Good to be here. It's weird being on this side of the couch because this couch is noticeably kind of uncomfortable. So I feel bad.
I was just gonna ask.
I feel very bad for all the people who have sat here for a long time and had to hang out on this couch.
We try to give the best atmosphere, but now that the producer sits in the seat, he knows the feeling, and he's like, I don't know.
Because now I'm feeling bad. Like, actually, you can tell where people have sat because it's right here. Because I wonder if I keep it is. It's just how worn in the couch is.
Yeah,
That's
you
all
can
that
sit
it is.
over there though. We can be a little distance.
No. See, this is the show though. Is that you have to stay in the same spot.
Stay in the same spot.
You do, yeah.
Locked, loaded. Well,
Right.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Being behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, you do this all the time. So for you, how easy is it to conduct the full interviews when you're normally the guy that most people rely on for the producing part?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because I think when I started getting into sports, I was used to kind of being the face of it. So that's where it was more natural for me to be in front. I'm the youngest child, so I'm used to being the center of attention. So that's where I was more confident in. And it was actually funny when I was setting all this up and trying to get everything squared away. I did think about it for a minute that when I first started at Hurrdat, I was hired as a media producer, which was, of course, to join on to this show first and then some other shows as well. And it was just so funny that I was so freaked out because I didn't know how to do any of the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I didn't know how to edit video. I kind of knew how to edit audio and stuff like that. I didn't know how to do all this production. I didn't know lighting. I didn't know setting up the scene, anything like that. So it's kind of the inverse, where I was actually way more nervous, and I'm definitely more knowledgeable now than I was, but it's way different in how confident I was being in front of the camera than where I was on the backside.
Well, thank you for not telling me that at the beginning, because I can tell you wore it well on that other side. I could not tell. I thought it was vice versa, where you were just trying to get your feet wet with learning that side, and then you were going the front, of course. When you're from central Nebraska, I won't say western Nebraska, as some people like to put you.
Well, I actually am from western Nebraska.
Dang it, I ruined it. I ruined it all. It's over.
No. Because I'm originally from Sidney.
Okay.
So I grew up all the way.
I knew Sidney, but then we talk Kearney is all we talk.
Yeah, so, and to be fair, I spent a lot of good, outside of just normal development years, my professional development was definitely in Kearney and in central Nebraska. So
now we're on the same page.
Yeah, there you go. So it's kind of one of those, where's your hometown? And it's okay, well, it's wherever you spent the most time. So it's probably half and half now between Kearney and Sidney, but that's, it's all semantic, so it doesn't really matter. It's all western Nebraska at the end of the day.
When you think of Sidney and you think of where you grew up and you think of where you're at in a bigger city here in Omaha on the social media side, what was some things that you looked up to back in Sidney? Because sometimes those smaller towns, all they have is, you've seen it with D1, D2. We can't always tag the kids in social media. They don't have it all unless you go for it all.
Yeah, and when I was in high school, it was kind of the start of Twitter, the start of people wanting to post certain brands and such, on Facebook. But it really was, truthfully, only our radio station. Even the Sidney Sun-Telegraph, the newspaper in town, you didn't really know who was the reporter. You kind of recognized maybe some faces here and there. But Randy Brown was our longtime radio broadcaster. He was the sports guy. He had done it for years and years. He had done maybe your friends' parents' games when they were at Sidney High, and now they were doing he was doing your games. So that's who kind of you recognized and you noticed. And so I think that's where most of my sports information always really came from, and where I guess he was kind of the person I always looked up to. I ended up working for KSID because naturally, if you're going to get into something, you do it kind of the place you're living at anyway. And yeah, it was a little bit different, but just to look on the side of it now and kind of what you referenced to about the smaller classes and why I try to focus on some of those smaller classes is because all the time anyone from the western part of the state, anybody from the rural parts of the state, anyone in classes really C2, maybe even C1 or smaller. We have a chip on our shoulder because we always feel disrespected because nobody's covering us. And I know it now because you mentioned moving to Omaha. When I was working in Kearney, it always felt like Kearney was never being mentioned. But they're a Class A, and then Kearney Catholic's a Class C1 or C2 school. They have multiple media outlets. They've got plenty of radio coverage. They've got all these different things that are covering them, but they still felt disrespected because NEB preps won't drive out to Kearney to go watch, whatever game's going on. So double that for all the kids who are from smaller towns and from even further away. So that's why I try to just focus on that because it's a chip on your shoulder, but then when you move to Omaha and you realize, there is, it's a dumb way to phrase it, but there's so many more people here that you're also yeah, these people need cover too. Everybody has 1,000 stories to share, right? And you want to be able to cover it as best you can, but there's only so much you can do, especially when time, distance, travel are all kind of factored in.
Well, and I think you probably have learned this year, especially the most with covering more of those D2, C1s and all those schools where to get to a game isn't always easy to get there on time because you have schedule outside of that stuff. You have your stuff where you have to do producing. You have deadlines you're trying to hit. But then you have that hour to 2 hour drive and sometimes further if you wanted to cover. This year, I covered just as you did, Johnson, Nebraska. Never been there in my life. And just that atmosphere, I told many people, that made me love football.
Yeah.
I can't say it enough. Especially when people look at scores of Class A, Class B. You're not always getting the best of competitions, but we still have to report it even when the score's 60-0, 60-8. It's not always the easiest. You're like, oh, man, I got to do another score touchdown for this team. But you go down to those D1, D2s, and those C1, C2s, that's a whole nother ball game, and it hits the soul of football. And what you remember of Husker football is – and maybe not yourself because you are a little younger. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so to me, the smash mouth quarterback run means so much more to me. So when I saw that D1 or even just the pulling into town and there's cars just everywhere galore and people are I'm like, man, I'm not going to find a parking spot here. But I got right next to the school, walk down, and you just look at that field and it's grass field. Amazing. I don't care what anybody says. Grass field is still amazing.
They're turf at Johnson Brock.
Was it turf?
It is turf. It's grass on the way down. The outside
yes,
of it. Yeah,
you're right.
They're one of, I think, 5 8-man schools that have turf, Planet Turf Field, something like that.
Then you look at the scoreboard; it's still the glass lights,
the
old school, and you look just beyond the field and just beyond the press box, and you have nothing but a cornfield.
Yep. And a burn pile. They got the burn pile.
And the burn pile, and it was just that to me was football for the soul. I don't know what your experience was. And I just say it because it just brings you back to what it was prior when all you have is all these big schools, you have all these big stadiums, you have all these big, I also grew up at Papillion where when I was there, you'd go to the game, everybody be at the game, and then after the game, you're walking up to Pizza Hut that's a mile away. You're not driving away, and you're actually interacting as a community, I guess. And that's what the D1 gave me.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. It's almost like turning back the clock and going back in time. For me, it's the same. When I go to a small school, it's just like going back home. It's just like going to a Sidney game. It's just like, the group of kids who can drive, the 16, 17-year-olds, drive out to the game, however far it is. If it's a road game, you go out there and you enjoy it, and especially if it's a bigger rival. So if it was Sidney, the kids are going to go out to Ogallala. They're going to drive to Scottsbluff. They're going to go to Gearing. They're going to go to Alliance. They're going to go to some of these closer schools that are still an hour and a half away. But you'd plan your trip. You'd get out there. It was a big deal to be able to get to a different town because maybe they have a different gas station. Maybe they have a different fast food restaurant.
They all still have Subway.
They always have Subway. But, like your example for 8-man or 6-man, these towns are really, really rural. And some of these towns are only located on, a back-end highway that you get to the school from a dirt road, or you have to be able to find your way to the field that is in the middle of nowhere. And the school is this entire landscape of there's cornfields and everything else we talked about. And then it's this school. But it's always nice to know when you're going to a big game that it's the biggest game in town. And that's one of my favorite parts of covering these games. And what it reminds me so much of home is because even when I was in Kearney at UNK, we didn't go to Kearney High games. We didn't go to a Kearney Catholic game. maybe if your hometown came by, you would stop by the high schools and you'd go do that. But as a job, that's the games that I would go to. I'd been to many Kearney High games where the stadium was not full, where, you know, the arena was not completely packed, and there were plenty of great times when it was. Many, many notable memories in which it was. But there were also plenty of times when there were not many people in the stands at all, just due to scheduling, whatever time the game was going to start, all that sort of stuff. But I can't recall very many times when I was in high school where that was ever the case, because in Sidney, not like there was much else going on,
Friday
right?
Night
and
Lights is a thing.
Yeah, and it goes down the line from especially Legion baseball, high school basketball on the colder days when you've got wrestling meets, like some of these, I don't want to say arenas, but some of these, facilities are just packed. And you look at the school and you're like, oh, something's going on there today, because you see every car available. And I just think that that's so unique that you can have so many towns across Nebraska that the argument on how small each town is gets more significant the smaller the town, right? Because my fiancée is from Adams, and it's a town of 600, 700 people. But she argues that I'm not from a small town because I had like a Walmart and I had a Safeway and I had grocery stores. She's like, we only had the bar that turned into a grocery store during the day and went back to a bar at night. That was our grocery store. And I was
Very
like, okay,
limited.
That's what I'm saying. So just all those different aspects of, like you said, it may be in Class A and Class B in 2005 or 1995 or 1985 or however far back you want to go. Maybe all of those schools and the way that Omaha and Lincoln were built and all the other bigger communities and towns and schools were built back in the day, maybe it still had that vibe where it's like, yeah, we're, like you said, we're going to go to the Pizza Hut. We're all going to, travel out to Lincoln Northeast after
You didn't miss
school.
a game. That's
right.
just it.
But now it's just not that way.
No, kids come and go.
And I know you've been to many places too. Like I've been to a lot of big games this past year for football season. And the Elkhorn South Bellevue West game was packed. Like those stands were very, very full. But there were plenty of other games that I went to that were notable. And I remember, like, even as packed as the Waverly State Championship game was, the football championship, where they took up basically half of Memorial Stadium. Mm-hmm. Their semifinal game that I went to against Seward, and I was like, Seward's only about 45 minutes away. They're really going to show up. And I know it was cold. There was the state volleyball finals going on. Waverly was in that as well. I looked at the stands and I was like, oh man, I really thought these were going to be like elbow to elbow getting in here. And that's no slight on Waverly. That's no slight on anyone else. But it was just one of those that you just look around and you're like, dang it. I was really hoping we were going to be like asses to elbows in here. That's what I was really hoping for.
See, and you get that way, not just about the fans, but even the gameplay sometimes,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Like and I think that's part of the sports media coverage that we get, because we can't side with one team as
I do
the
all
one.
the time.
Well, I mean, you could side, but you know what I mean. Like we have to cover both.
Yeah, right.
Notably to
Yes.
keep our NSAA.
Right, that's the way to phrase it. Except I notably am a huge honk for Sydney, so like I have to when Sydney's in the state final, and one of my coworkers, Jacob Padilla, was not. He encouraged me and he was like, hey, it's really great that they're here and everything. But I was wearing all the Sidney gear. Like I was like decked out in it, and I was on the sideline like roaming around, and I was on Wahoo sideline, like, and I was doing my job. But he like sent me multiple NSA things that were like, you cannot wear like team issued gear. You cannot wear gear that has like team logos or, the school name.
Yeah.
And I literally was like, this is the one time my hometown has ever been here. I don't care. Like I'm gonna live in this moment as much as I could.
What do you think of that moment for those kids? Like if you could relive and think of it like happening in your time, like how does that even compare?
Well, it's one of those that I was from a very blessed time that I didn't contribute as much as probably I want to give myself credit for.
He did.
No, I did not. I did not. Listen, I didn't do anything. But I was from the second most successful run of Sidney football history, where we won our first playoff game in school history in 2014, moved on to the quarterfinals and lost to Gretna that season in Gretna. So being a part of that journey, I could definitely relate to everything that was going on with what the Sidney kids this year had going on in their minds and their heads. Now, they were a bit more battle-tested in season. They had been to 2 straight semifinals at that point. They won this amazing overtime game, or a comeback victory against Columbus Lakeview a couple of weeks before in the semifinal.
Which you got to go to, man. Like
I did.
That's just those, like, people don't understand. You could take those circle back moments and make it no matter. And I only say this because people, to be real, we don't make all this billions of dollars in what we do, but those circle back moments is that icing on the cake.
Yeah.
A little bit that just makes you go, man, this feels great to come back and see everything that I wish I would have done, but now I get to celebrate with the guys.
Yeah.
In the town.
And part of it, like, obviously I'm tongue in cheek here, and that is just part of my personality, but it's also true in two forms. One, that yes, I did want to go out. That was the same night as Omaha West Side and Millard South. Everybody was going to be there, right?
That's why I didn't go.
There was also the Papio South Creighton Prep on the opposite
Great
side.
game.
There was also the Class B semifinals that were on that side that everyone kind of had matched up and said these are probably close games. And I get a lot of my own discretion, luckily, because Hurrdat trusts me to be able to kind of make my own decisions now, that whenever I want to go kind of test the waters and try a different big game chain, I'm able to do that now. I have got my own little setup, my own little gear and equipment, and it's just a rinky-dink, TikTok tripod with my phone, but whatever. It still works, right? But I wanted to say this is the biggest game, not only for me, but also it's the biggest game for Class C1. It's the biggest game on who can take down Wahoo next. Like, is there someone who can beat Wahoo? And those two teams had a great chance to be able to do it. Sidney came out with it. But it was also true in the same sense that I'm still a reporter. And I knew the most out of every single school that was still available to cover, to go to the state championship, to be able to, that was playing that weekend. I knew more about Sidney because I was from there. And that's one of the reasons why I also chose to go out there, because had Sidney won, which they did, I knew without having to look up anything, every single stat and fact that I needed to, because I'm from there. I know some of those kids. I was friends with their brothers. I knew their parents. Their parents may have worked with my parents when I still lived there, right? I knew more about them than anyone else, any other media person that showed up there, including Randy Brown, who's at the game, would have known. And that's just because, one, I cover the state. I would have known more about Columbus Lakeview than the Sidney people probably would have. I knew more about Sidney because I'm from there and because I had done, my own homework throughout the season to gear up for it. So, yeah, some of it is homerism for sure. And I'm rooting for the Sidney boys and girls basketball teams to make it back to state. But listen, if I get another chance and they've got a district final that's less than an hour away, or a little bit, I would say less than 2 hours away, I'm going to do my best to get out there because I know those stories, and I know those stories really well.
And then what do you feel is your response from those kids as well? Do you feel like it's – I only say this because I know that at first it's kind of when you first show up, now obviously maybe not Sidney, but when you first show up to some of these small schools, they kind of like have to do a double take. Yeah. It's like they almost don't believe it. I've had a Class B school go, how'd you find this game? And I'm like, it was voted on. Well, you weren't at the Omaha North and West Side? No, I'm not. I'm enjoying it. Like,
right.
That's the bad part that I feel bad for these kids as well, because hopefully with us getting out there, all the media that's out there, they just feel like they're being able to be seen a little bit more.
Well, and I think that that's part of it too, because it's like you said earlier, especially in football, basketball, track and field doesn't get covered like as much as it should. Class A and B soccer and baseball will take a lot of the precedence when it comes to the spring sports too. So these smaller schools only have one or two things. So really it's focused on football and basketball. It's a passion for love. Like, they're playing the game because they want to be out there. They're not really doing it for a whole lot of other reasons, unless their parents were like, hey, you have to get out of the house to do something, which is very real out there too. But yeah, when it comes to those smaller schools, I remember like Johnson Brock, and you probably had the same experience. Some guy, I think it was the assistant coach, had come to me during the game. Yeah, he walked up to me while I was on the sideline, up to me during the game, and was like, "Are you with Hurrdat?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Are you the big game chain guy?" And I was like, "That's me." And he was like, "Really cool that you're out here. How did you end up out here?" And I was like, "Oh, I mean, like, I've always wanted to come out here. Like, I just wanted to cover this game." And I think it's just really cool that, one, you can highlight, obviously, the kids and the stories and such, but it's like you were saying, you just become like the biggest part of that game because you were there. And you never know if like kids really notice, because again, we only have like phones, like, right? But sometimes we come with other cameras. Sometimes they notice that we've got different videographers or photographers that aren't their parents or aren't the school secretary or aren't whoever, right? That they see at every single game. And I think it's cool for them to know, like, hey, this game could be somewhere. And it's really nice, too. You have a brand, obviously, like I'm with Hurrdat Sports and the NAB Preps brand and all that stuff. So I think more people recognize me a little bit when I go out and do stuff because my face has been on more things. Some people recognize me as well. And it's cool that they think it's a big deal when we show up to something.
I could tell you right now, and especially if you ever repeat someone, they
Yeah.
really notice. I mean,
I've been to way too many Omaha Scut places. Like they recognize me way too much. I
said it even at the Millard South game I went to this year. I got to go to one besides the championship, and last year, their running back, Prusha, he let loose.
Yeah.
This year, when he saw me, that you could tell in his mind he was trying to do the same thing and show up whatever Jet was going to do.
Yeah.
He was just
hard to do, but yes.
It is hard to do, but like you see them firing, and I could say that even for when I was at Ashland Greenland. Amazing to go out there. Never been there.
Yeah. Well, in Newfield, too.
Yeah. And it was amazing
Oldfield
atmosphere.
was fantastic. So.
Their athletic director is one of my old coaches that I coached with at Omaha South. So, Detterding, he's out there, their AD.
Yep.
And it was my first time being out there at that field. They have that little berm at the end zone. They have just a field. And then I remember the running back just went off. And then I kind of started watching Tanjay, the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he started going off. And he really wasn't doing much at the beginning. I'm like, these kids just go crazy when they know the camera's working sometimes. And it sometimes is in a detriment.
Right. Well, and I think maybe that's the case, right? Like, I think that is true, but
not
also
in a bad way.
It's not necessarily that we go to games full disclosure, we don't go to every single game, and this is where I start to feel bad because I've been a part of bad teams, schools that don't get covered, that sort of thing, because they're not the highlighted teams, right? That's so hard to overcome because our job is tell the biggest stories and every story as much as we can. But you can't cover all of them, right?
Yeah.
Like this basketball season, how many games are we going to go to where both teams are combined for single-digit wins? Probably not many, right?
Yeah.
That is the hardest part of this job, and that's the hardest part, especially when I got to help out with our NAB preps, football and volleyball award finalists, picking players to be finalists and winners when they are so well deserved across the state. I felt my gut was torn apart. Because it's just I want to give an award to every single person that I've seen, every single kid that I know, every single kid that I think deserves it. And I felt horrible, but I also felt great for the people who won it and were finalists because they definitely deserved it. So it's so tough, right? Because, and again, it's just like you said, they see the camera. Maybe they're doing it for us. Maybe they're just that good. It's like a twofold.
Most of the time they are that good, but you just see them just feel a little bit more energy, and you're seeing them okay, a little bit more. Of course, for you, how far does your media go back? You said you played sports, but what even got you into sports media? Because it's not something that is always looked into. I want to get into unless you have a desire burning. Mine, I could say, driving around. Once I got out, once I went in high school, I went to a school where I knew nobody at Omaha South. So I didn't get to do all the sports that I did prior to Omaha South. I've always played all the sports because I didn't know the process going into high school. No one guided me. No one gave me direction.
Yeah.
Hung around with the wrong people. It is what it is. Here I am many years later doing what I do. But what I mean by that is afterwards, I just started listening to 1620. And then I started hearing Nick Baugh, and all them, and then to see where they are. Mm-hmm. Those were my inspiration. Then, of course, my first radio show was on 1620. So, that was my inspiration to move up. What was kind of yours growing up to get you into the sports media? Yeah,
I didn't really have any of those just because of where I was at. I mean, in Sydney at the time, it would have, I was in high school from 2012 to 2016. There was no sports talk station out there. There was FM radio, there was AM radio. I thought radio was really cool, and it still is. I really enjoyed traditional terrestrial radio, whether it's top 40 stations, whether it's regular oldies, if it's anything in between, country, all that talk, everything. I find it very, very intriguing and interesting, and I really like the craft that a lot of people, when they take it seriously and they're very good at it, I think that that's one thing that drove me towards it, because clearly I'm a talker. And I don't like to listen very often, but I do enjoy when people listen to me because it feels like I'm important, and I like to be a source of knowledge for people. And sometimes you do, and I'm saying all these again, it's just kind of who I am, but I also recognize that I enjoy being the center of attention. Like, I enjoy, like, having the spotlight on me, and I wasn't a good enough athlete to have that. So I thought that, okay, well, if I don't get to be the athlete, I want to be the person who talks about the athletes, and I want to have those. The opinions and all the other stuff that kind of comes with that, I'm to and fro when it comes to, like, the sports talk and having to be so far on one side or so far on the other. I'm still a little antsy about kind of that side of it, but the being able to tell a story and share and be able to tell people, oh, like, the coolest guy at a bar is the guy who can sit down and tell a million stories and tell you exactly every single detail of what happened and everybody's thoughts in it, because it engages the entire room and every single person has a character. That's who I always wanted to be. I just wanted to be the cool guy who is able to tell everybody's story the best way that I knew how, and that was going to games, that was doing radio play-by-play, that was doing all that other stuff. So it all started, like, if you want to know, it started when I was at Sidney in high school, and I followed Randy Brown up to a Western Conference tournament basketball game, and I would go to every single Sidney game because I didn't have anything better to do, and I always wanted to have a student section that was there, even if it was just me. And one of these times, Randy just pulled me aside, and he was like, you go to all these games, do you just want to be on the radio? And I was like, sure. So he put a headset on me, turned me off and all that stuff. He's like, just take my stats, like, you know, get used to it, the flow. The second half comes up, and he just he right before we come back on, he goes, hey, pull your mic down. I'm going to turn your mic on. You don't have to say anything. Like, just keep taking your stats. But if you have something to say, go for it. Cool. I'll do that, Randy. And I remember that.
What was your first saying?
Yep,
Come on, man.
At that time, Scottsbluff was very good. They had tremendous players. I think it was like Trent Harris, Drew Cuxhausen, Landon Walker, like all these guys. They're fantastic. And they could rotate 5 in, 5 out. And they were an amazing boys basketball team. Sidney was competing with them, but they were down 10. Scottsbluff rotated 5 out, and 5 were coming in. Randy reads them off, and he just goes, oh, coming into the game, blah, blah, whatever. And so then I, like, kind of leaned in, and I was just like, you know, when Scottsbluff brings them in, they're not backups, they're reinforcements. and Randy, to his credit, looked over and he goes, well, that was good. And then he just, like, let it roll. And then from then on, like, I just kept doing some more games with Randy. Sidney picked up the first version of Strive, which was SRTV. And we had a video broadcast that I was able to do broadcast when I was a kid then. And after that, I just went on to UNK, kept doing stuff at KLPR, went in the professional world, stuck with radio, traditional radio, and then found my way here in Omaha. So, yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say this whole sitting on the side for a moment, because I think about, you know, I always forget it until, like, you really think about your history, you know, and I told people I did here in Omaha, there's a thing called the Career Center when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. Went there for my senior year, and they had 3 items. You did it all through the year. The first one was radio for a third. Yeah. Second one was HTML. Yes, I knew how to do HTML back in the day. And then the third one was television. So we had a production we called No Name Productions. And then
it's a good name.
when I was in I was a GM at Burger King, and it was down in Bellevue. And this guy would always come in and order the same thing, a Whopper Jr., small fry, senior drink for lunch every week, Monday through Friday.
What'd that cost then?
Less than $3.
I was going to say $2.15.
Good days.
That's a good time.
Well, close.
That's a good time.
His name was Tom Cortor. I don't know if you've ever heard of the name. Him and his guy used to cover games out at Buell.
Oh,
on
nice.
the radio.
Yeah, nice.
And he goes, Kendall, I see what you do here. Would you like to come out and be our sideline guy? I'm like, what?
Nice.
So and this was back when that AM radio was not reaching far. Like, I mean, my wife went to listen, and she's like, I had to drive closer to hear from Buell. Yeah. And people don't understand. And it's like, it's that passion that I think back, and R.I.P. Tom, he passed away not too long ago with, he had a cancer, but I think back to that, and I never got to pursue it. And then if he was to see where I am now, like it's like those moments. I mean, have you talked to Randy since then? And,
oh yeah, all the time.
And what's his thoughts on where you're at now? And was this something that he saw in you of a possibility? And I say that because people who have been in the business probably as long as Randy, feel that type of way. They're like, hey, I noticed some of these things. Obviously, I gave the chance. I saw it. Has that ever came up from Randy or anything of that sort of him kind of recognizing where you are now to where you started?
Yeah, Randy hates it. He created Monster. I mean, like, it was his worst creation. It's like Frankenstein scientist, like, hated what he made. Like, that's Randy, for sure. But, no, I copied a lot from Randy. Just the fact that he was able to kind of teach me the basics of a lot of stuff. I listened to him when I wasn't, when I wouldn't travel with my parents to whatever road games my brothers were playing in, I would listen to Randy. So those were my first experiences of listening to the only way you could get the game at the time in Sydney was listening to Randy Brown. That was when the online stream was just turning up. So we had a kitchen radio. I would sit in our kitchen and I would bring a little TV up from downstairs. I'd play NCAA and I would listen to my brother's game as they just got waxed by whoever they were playing. And is the only way that you could be able to pay attention. And it was really cool to be able to, like, work with him, see him in action, and then learn from him. And later on, I just asked him, I was like, hey, those spotting boards that you make, can I just have those? And he sent me, like, the Excel file. And whenever, even today, if I go and do games, which I haven't done in a while, I still use those same ones. And I do my football ones differently. I don't like how he does football. But basketball, it was really fun when he would come down to the Kearney girls basketball showcase at the beginning of January every single year when they started it. And Sidney used to play in it pretty annually. And he would come by me getting set up for the Kearney High game, which was basically the 8-9 o'clock game. And he would walk by during halftime of the Sidney game, and he would just go, I recognize those boards. Yeah, because they're yours, Randy. They're the exact same things. I haven't changed a thing. But everything that he taught me there was really cool. So now that I'm obviously older, he's offered many times to be like, hey, are you sticking around? Let's get a beer. Like, come over here. Like, do all this other stuff when he comes down for state events, especially basketball, volleyball, that sort of thing. So, yeah, one of these times I definitely need to take him up on that. But every time I get to see him, it's great. It's always great catching up with him. It feels like it's almost like your high school reunion. But it's funny. Like, I remember
not one you regret.
No,
right?
And it's definitely one that, of all like the teachers and stuff, and I had great teachers, fantastic teachers at Sidney High. I learned the most into what I'm doing now from Randy Brown, who never worked in the school, but somehow was always there. So yeah,
it's those little things that push the dream, right? And the possibility of what could be. When you went to college and you went into that field, was there any things that they advised you or you talked about in that time frame of your life that you now go, I see what they were talking about, but back then I didn't realize when it comes to media?
You know, what's weird is that I want to give UNK like a lot of credit and everything, but truthfully, no. Like, for what we are doing now and what Hurrdat Sports does every single day, it has nothing really to do with what I learned, except for really the basics and kind of the footprint and the base of the pyramid in which you are trying to learn every single day, like where you start, where it's, you know, integrity, morals, like all that sort of stuff in journalism, like telling a story, AP formats, like all that sort of stuff, right? Like some of the technical, some of it more like logistical, and definitely a lot of it in storytelling. But at the time, UNK didn't have a video department like they do now. They had a video class and a video editing, you know, kind of master that you could get into, but that wasn't an option for me if I wanted to stay in the sports, radio, broadcasting, whatever major that I was a part of. At the time, I was also, I should say not the time, I mean, I was a double major in exercise science as well, so I was split between two different places, either in the Mitchell Center or I was at the kinesiology offices trying to make sure that my grades stayed up for exercise science. So it was tough at the time to say, okay, well, what do I need to do to be like well broadened and whatever? What I came up to finding was kind of the same thing that happened with Randy, was that the best teachers that I had, Ford Clark was phenomenal, but the best thing that he ever told me was you just have to go out and do it. And at the time when I was just strictly in radio, I was on every single KLPR student broadcast. I was doing every single opportunity that anyone would call me to do. If there was a radio station coming to Kearney and they had a high school game to cover and they couldn't do it, they would call Ford. Ford would let me know. I would go do the game. That's how I got on with KRVN. That's how Jason Jorgensen and I got in touch. He did the exact same thing. I started to travel out for some games, and it later led to a full-time job with KRVN just because of those opportunities. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I can give UNK credit for is that I wouldn't have made any of the connections possible had it not been for Ford and had it not been for going to UNK. But in the classroom, did I learn as much as I probably should have? Yeah, I did all the classes. I had a good GPA. I did all that stuff. But if I had just done whatever 120 credit hours that I needed to, I wouldn't be where I'm now. And I definitely wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn to continue to do things in this field without getting out of the classroom and doing something that was outside of Canvas and of everything else that comes with the online learning.
Well, and of course, even from when you were in college, things have grown and developed. What brought you, or how did you get in touch with the Omaha area? What kind of got you here?
Well, that's the best part is, so when I was, I moved on from KRVN and I was the sports director at KGFW in Kearney. I was covering Kearney High. I'd been there for 3 years. I had known the entire time that there was an end date for my time in Kearney because my girlfriend at the time was in medical school in Des Moines, and she was going to pick where we lived next because that's where her residency was going to go. So she could have any pick. And I remember on match day, the 3 that we had circled were Lexington, Kentucky, Omaha, and I think the third one might have been Billings, Montana. So we were all over the place. And even in that sense, if you're not familiar with match day, you can still not match. And then you have to spend that next week figuring out, okay, who will take me? Like, where can I go to do my residency? Who needs an opening? That sort of thing. So it was all up in the air. We knew she was getting matched on Monday, so that was, sweat of relief. And then Friday morning, she woke up, opened her email, and it said Omaha, Nebraska. And it was mid-March or so when we found this out. So we had ourselves a big party and everything, and that's when I put in my essentially 3 months notice that I was going to move to Omaha. We moved here, got settled in, and I couldn't find any work. I was living in Omaha. I tried to make connections where I could. I tried to piece together what I could. I had messaged Mike Sauter. He never got back to me, which was rude.
Weird.
Yeah, rude, Mike. But I needed a job because resident salary doesn't help us, and you don't want to be the loser boyfriend who stays at home and plays video games all day. Yeah. So I just I signed on with KTIC in West Point to do a season of high school football for them and to loosely maybe do some other things if they needed me. And I started working at a YMCA as an aquatics manager, basically a pool boy. I would lifeguard. I would get my ass kicked by people who needed to learn how to swim.
Hold your legs up.
There was one day I came home and I had never been beat up the way that I was. I mean, it was crazy just seeing like what I had gone through. It was like my body was covered in chlorine. My eyes were like bloodshot. I thought I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And of course, not fantastic money there either. It was tough and it was really hard the first couple months because it's also a hit to your confidence. I got very lucky. Hurrdat had an opening on their website for a producer on the entertainment side. Didn't know anything about Hurrdat. I had heard of Hurrdat Sports. I knew Mike Sauter had worked there. I knew it wasn't a part of Hurrdat Sports. It was just for the Hurrdat, and I was like, I don't care. I need a job. It pays way more than what I'm making right now. And Hurrdat wouldn't get back to me. I kept applying, and I applied to the same position. And finally, like, the portal was just like, hey, you've used, like, every email possible. You can't, we don't know what to do. So I went through all of the Hurrdat LinkedIn people, and Chris Gorman was the only person that I had like any mutual connection to, and it's because we both went to UNK. So I literally messaged him, the VP of the company, and I think I just said something like, hey, I've been trying to apply to this job. Do you know when like any interviews are going to happen or anything? Then we started talking about Nick's Euros and Kearney. We started talking about like that different connection, and he got it done within a week. I was talking to Pat and Cam at the time, did my interview. The next week I was hired and I was here. And I was just a producer on that side. 3 months later, you advance there. I've just been doing some production for some sports stuff. Mike recognizes me from some things that I've done for my radio time in Kearney and other places. And it gets word back to Sasha that, hey, we might need another reporter or something. And then I just end up doing a couple of big game chains, and here I am. Every day they
every day.
Every day they just had one more thing for me to do. So
well, and you know what I love about that story that I think people forget is yes, the industry can be small. And what I mean by that is people would think, well, you're just in Kearney. You should have a connection and be able to make a connection in another city, same state. They both have Class A. They both, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this industry isn't like that.
Yeah.
It is catching the right eye at the right time.
And that's what I always assumed would happen to me. Because, again, like, I'm always super confident in myself, which definitely leads to, like, that time when we moved here and I didn't have anything, and we had pushed off how late we could get to Omaha because I still couldn't get a job and I couldn't find anything. I was looking in all these different fields. I was calling so many different people that I knew, and nobody had anything. And I couldn't even get like entry-level stuff just because the line of work from radio sports director is really hard to sell to someone else to like, hey, I want to go into sales. Hey, I know how to do all this stuff. And they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand. It's tough. But because of all the things that I had done before, it stuck out to some people, just not the right people. But then the skills that I acquired, and luckily, again, the right people had seen it, knew of me, and respected me, thankfully enough at the time, to be able to say, yeah, no, I think that he's the right fit to join sports and to join these people. Because truthfully, and listen, I love Mike Sauter. I cannot let him hear this. He cannot find out about this.
He won't ever watch an episode. He's got things to do.
Thank God. Because if he ever finds this, I'm in trouble. But I would not be still at Hurrdat. I would not be able to say that I have grown my career, that I gained, whatever amount of following or whatever, had Mike literally not went up to whoever and just said, I didn't know he worked here. We should add him to Hurrdat Sports. He quite literally plucked me because he saw me on the second floor, recognized me, came up, and was just like, hey, I'm Mike Sauter. And I was like, Mike, I know who you are. Like, we've met, all that stuff.
I've seen you before.
And he was like, okay, good. And I remember it very vividly. It was one of the first 2 weeks that I was here editing videos and stuff. And he was like, okay, good. I'm glad you're here. And I was like, cool. And I thought to myself, I was like, what do I have to do to get in his back pocket next? Like, what do I have to do to go out and do stuff for him so that way I don't have to be behind this desk anymore? And whatever he did, whoever he talked to, and whoever believed him, all that ripple effect definitely had to work out to get to where I am, and hopefully wherever I'm going next. So, yeah.
What do you remember about your first time being behind the board producing?
Oh, it was weird. I thought I was going to have a breakdown. Like, the first couple of times, like, it was Dylan, it was Brock, it was Cam a couple of times that I had to sit back there in the production studio, and I was like, I don't understand any of this stuff. And my first 2 weeks at Hurrdat were some people's dreams, not mine, because I didn't know how to do any video editing. And in my interview, I told them, I was like, how heavy is the video editing on this? They were like, oh, it's not much. It's really easy, though. And I was like, well, I haven't video edited anything since I was in college in 2015. It is now 2024. I don't know. Like, obviously, we're talking like hundreds of updates and hundreds of different applications of like video stuff. I didn't know what the level was, so I was terrified. So my first 2 weeks, they didn't assign me anything, because there weren't new shows coming in. No one needed to like move over anything. They just had this extra producer role, and they were like, okay, well, just hang out here from 8:30 to 5 every single day. And I was like, okay. I just watched YouTube videos on how to edit for hours and hours and hours on end. And I would come up here, film something myself, bring it back down to my desk, and I would just mess with it in the Adobe products for hours. And it was insane. I literally went crazy like doing it because I never did anything. I just watched YouTube videos and produced videos that no one ever saw. But I'm not a great video editor. I'm not doing what Kyle Byers does. I'm not doing what any of our video team are doing. But like,
nuts.
Everything that I know how to do quickly helps me produce the morning show. It helps me produce this show. It helps me produce everything. So when my time is limited, I can go back because I know these certain skills that I acquired over those first 2-3 weeks of just trying to figure out how to do it. It was tough.
What did when you think of your tribulations to get to where you were, how did COVID affect you? Did it ever make you stronger? I only bring this up because when I started a radio show, it was during COVID. Yeah. You know what we did? We still raised the viewings on 1620. Obviously, it ain't hard because it was previously from 6 to 8. It was just their, CBS or whoever was on there at that time. So it's not hard because no one was ever on there.
Yeah.
But there was no sports.
Yeah.
So for me, that just drove me to really be able to open up this aspect of it. I think the interviewing, the getting to more of the story, because you didn't have all the stats, you didn't have all the numbers because not all the games were being played, but you still had to find conversation.
Yeah.
What do you think? Did COVID help or hurt you through your process?
At the time when I was in COVID, I had just graduated from UNK, and I had to accept, honestly, it was more professional and personal building than anything. That's what it was, because I had a GM at the time, GM at KRVN, and I wanted to stay there. I didn't want to look at other jobs because I had been there part-time. I had been working like quite a bit. And when I graduated, I was like, hey, I'm ready to go full-time. Like, do you have a job? And they were like, yeah. And this GM or the program director, whoever it was, I vividly remember he was like, why don't you make me an offer? This is your first time, like, being full-time.
Ooh.
Like, this is your first time. Like, we do want you here, but I want you to make, like, an offer to me. So I did my research. Like, I called Jim Tim and the Nebraska Broadcast Association. I, like, talked to him. I was like, what does a first-year radio broadcaster make for, like, these specific roles? Because essentially they were just going to give me the job that I had been doing full-time. They were like, this is your role. And I was like, okay, cool. I had talked to other radio station people, talked to them. Their numbers were like, everyone's numbers were like all over the place. I looked up like all the Indeeds, all the LinkedIns, all of the Google searches, everything that I could possibly do to do all my research. He gave me about 3 days. I came back in 3 days, and I remember this is very vividly. He told me, he was like, do you have an offer for me, essentially just for salary? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I would like, and I remember telling him, $41,000, because I thought that was like livable. That was everything that I needed, like commute, all that stuff, because I was living in Kearney, driving to Lexington every single day, about 45-minute drive. And from everything that I had gathered, it was a little bit up, but I was like, I'm negotiating, right? Like, he can talk me down. And I was like, I can go down to like 38. I'm first year. It'll be fine. And he looked at me and laughed, and he was like, I can offer you 18.
Oh, the part that people get scared and don't have an understanding of what it really is.
I went home and I cried. I had two roommates at the time, and my now fiancée had just moved to Des Moines. I was like, I will never see her. I will never be able to afford to live anywhere but this double-wide trailer in which I'm living in right now. I will always have to have roommates, and I'll literally never get out of this hole. I have student loan debt. She'll have medical school debt. I got to do something different. So I had to accept it. I didn't have any other job offers.
But did it make you ever think that you would leave what you love? Because I think at a young age, it's easier to do that.
Yeah, 100 times.
Like my job that I was working when I was, in my 20s was because I had to. I had 4 kids at the time. Not because I wanted to. And now I'm in my 40s and I'm working everything I want to.
Right.
Because I can.
Yeah, I never got to the point where until recent, like the past year, where I moved to Omaha and I just had to look for anything and everything. But I never got to that point because it felt like this is the only option. Because it was COVID, right? There were no job applications. There was nothing else opening up.
No face-to-face getting to know people.
That was the only opportunity that I had. No one else was going to hire someone that was like me, that was right out of college. My only other option was to go to grad school for my exercise science degree. That was kind of the only other thing that I could have done, but I missed that window because I assumed that I was going to be full-time in radio. So I was full-time in radio. I just started to do every little thing that I possibly could. If they had an overtime or a Sunday night and they were like, hey, we'll pay someone an extra 2 hours to go do this, yep, I'm on it. Like, I'll go do that. I'd clock in. I would stay. I learned that if you clocked in a minute before the hour, it counted you for that hour as well. And if you clocked in like a minute after, it counted you for that hour. So then my hours looked a little bit more. And so I kept like basically maxing them out, and I'd be like, hey, I'm getting close to like overtime. Can I get like an overtime pay or something? And I would do anything possible to make ends meet because I was driving 45 minutes every single day to like just get to work. And it worked. I mean, I got here and everything, but yeah, it was
anybody
tough.
Tell you that was the route that it could go when you were growing up? And did that deter? Obviously it didn't in the moment because you had to, but was that ever a thought? I mean, the blessing is you have no kids.
Yeah, right.
But you do have a relationship, like you said. You're trying to get to Des Moines.
Well, I mean, yeah. and you're like looking long-term too, because like that was the toughest part is like my fiance is going to be a doctor, right? Like it's great. And I love to make the jokes. It's just like, yeah, I just hung around the science building. I knew I was going to be in radio. Like I knew what I was doing. But truthfully, like that is the hardest part of a job like this, that you can be a public figure. You can do all these other things, right? Like we can tell stories. We can like make people feel enlightened, feel better about, their circumstance, tell stories about their kids or their friends or whoever or whatever. We get to see incredible things, talk to incredible people. But at the end of the day, there was that part of me where it's like, man, this sucks to go home because I don't feel like I'm providing enough like in my own home. Yes. And I felt that over the past year and a half because it's like, my fiance's a doctor. Like, she literally goes home. My work day and her work day are so different. I listen to Ravi and Damon every single day, and how they talk about, whatever food Damon leaves out and doesn't eat. And then Ravi complains about Scott Frost. Like, that's my day, and I'm just like, oh, brutal. I had to make like 3 YouTube segments out of this, and like then I had a Wired Axcess recording at 3:30. Like, it's crazy. And she'll be like, oh, well, these things happened at my work because I'm in a hospital, like trying to keep people alive. And I'm like, ooh,
we're so not similar.
No, it's tough. So it's not imposter syndrome, but it is just one of those that you just like in your own home, and this.
Yes.
If you have a significant other, that you don't want to feel like you're the loser in the relationship,
yes.
right? And I never wanted her to be like, oh man, like,
this
what's
is
going
what
on
I'm
here?
with.
And that's what it felt like at first, because I was like, I can't let her know. Like, I was like, I can't let her know about this, but we persevered, we made it through, and now we're here. So
well, and then you do the proposal. I mean, you know, that had to be the best part of going, okay, she has faith in me.
Yeah.
And that's what it is all about. Money is money, right? You can't make that stuff up. It's either you're making what you're making. Obviously, you can go get more jobs. You could do that. But what I'm saying is, in your industry, you're going to get paid as you get paid.
Yeah.
We hustle to make more. Don't get me wrong. But we're not doctors. We're not making what doctors make. So it can't be about that. It has to be about you supporting her through her hardest times.
Right.
Her supporting you. But then for us, we have a lot of fun with some of the stuff we do, so it's hard for them to really support because we don't have those stresses of what a doctor might have or, their job. So it's like trying to find that even keel to go, okay, I can't make it sound like I've just had the worst of time. Yeah. And all I did was I just was upset because they asked me for a last-minute, 3-minute video.
Well, and I know that this is like the hardest part too, and to be clear, doctors work very, very hard, right? They work very hard to like get to where they're going. They work very hard every single day, and they do everything in their power to make sure that they're like either somebody's life is as comfortable as it can be, or they're getting you back to the comfortability in which you want. That's everyone's goal, and that's what my fiance has to do every single day. And when she has time off and she can decompress from those things, that's always when it's like I'm leaving to go out the door to go cover a high school basketball game. And that's, I think, the toughest part is you just don't get to share a lot of these like moments of just quiet when it's just both of us. And I think that is kind of the toughest part for us. But she's been great. She's awesome. And she's told me, too, that she's like, one day, hopefully, that the Carolina Panthers will call you and just be like, we need a sideline reporter. And it's like, cool. And I've always told her, whatever is best for you. I always want to make sure that like everything is working for you because you are the person that makes all of this work, right? And not just because of money and monetary, but just because of her line of work. I can do this anywhere. And I know Hurrdat Sports would also support me if I had to go somewhere else and do something to an extent, right? Like I can't move to Japan and they'd be like, hey,
we'll let you cover Japan baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not gonna like be unrealistic with that, but like if I had to move to a different state or something, would they say, okay, you're going to be a strict producer because we want you to be on? I don't know what the answer is, but I know that they would. I feel like that Hurrdat has done so well by me, and I am so gracious for what they have taught me and everything that I try to do every single day in and day out to provide, from my circumstance and like for what I do here, that I think that they would be like, yeah, we view you as an asset. We would like for you to be here. And I think that there's a lot of comfortability in that too, that we can both, me and my fiance, willingly kind of move forward with like our future, knowing that like we're very secure and we feel very good about like what's happening and where we're going. And it's, again, not only the relationships that like we built with each other, the relationships that I built here and what she's been able to do and the hard work that she put in to be able to get where she's going.
When you look at everything from 5 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever you want to reference, and you look to where you are now, what is the thing that you saw in your vision that you get to do and you enjoy? And what's one thing that, you didn't think would be a part of your journey?
That's a good question. What's actually crazy is, so I'm going to cheap your answer and say getting married. That'll be a big one. But
25 years this July, man. I know how it is.
Right? But in terms of professionally, because I'm assuming that's what you were asking about, sometimes, especially at first, and this is being in Omaha, this is being with Hurrdat, all that stuff, I cover, and I love covering the high school stuff, and I always have, and I feel like that's kind of where my niche is. The first couple of assignments I ever did for Hurrdat was covering Creighton volleyball and covering Omaha stuff. And I got to go cover Husker baseball and all that. And I've been to Memorial Stadium. I haven't been like a part of the radio team. I haven't been like any of that stuff, right? But at previous jobs, I've had plenty of opportunities to cover Husker football, Husker basketball. I've sat in the stands and in press conferences for volleyball. I've done all these different things from the radio side, and it wasn't. Not that it wasn't interesting. It just wasn't for me. I didn't want to be a part of like that big rat race that everyone wants to be a part of. It definitely needs covering. There are 1,000 stories to tell there. That's great. But there was something so unique and special about getting to be a part of like the Creighton stuff. I gravitate a lot towards Creighton because they feel like the afterthought a lot of times, and Omaha in this way too, of kind of just the state of Nebraska athletics, right? Because and there was something so unique about it because I joined Hurrdat Sports and the Creighton volleyball coverage at the time where they were going to their deepest run in program history, getting to the Elite Eight for the first time. And I was just happened to be along for the ride. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I was talking to people that I didn't even know and I hadn't even like met yet, but they were so appreciative and so cool about it that it like hit home that it was like, wow, like they like that we're here. They like that like I get to talk with them. They don't even know who I am. They're going to forget the minute I walk out that door, right? But like it was just cool because they appreciated that someone was there to cover them from their own city, from their own state, and that they were no longer just the afterthought. And I think that that's something that like I really resonate with. That if you want to ask like what's going to happen with me in the next like 5-10 years, I would say like it's probably just keeping doing that. Like just keep on doing and highlighting people that I feel like have felt like the afterthought for so long. Whether it's the smaller schools, whether it's a kid that's in a Class A program that isn't as good as everybody else's, but he's, he or she is fantastic in what they do. I think that that's my goal. It's like every single time I go to a game, I try to like look through and see like what's a new dynamic that you can share that nobody else is kind of looking at.
It's funny that you say these things, and I don't know, you could see my hair on my arm is just upraised just by that saying there. Because I think of like when I had the radio show, the last segment I would always record on Facebook Live. My co-host at the time would go, I don't understand why you're doing that. This is right at COVID, before YouTube of shows and all that started. I don't know why you're doing that. That's just stupid. Now look at them. They all do it. Yep. Not saying I started, don't get me wrong. But I saw the vision of what could be and why important it was. And then you talked about covering the outliers. I got to cover, thanks to Coach Held, I got to cover UNK football one time. Why? There are so many Nebraska kids on that program and what they get to do. This year I got to do it with Wayne State. And just being able to do that for those schools, I'm nobody. I'm just Wired Axcess. I'm just here. I'm no big name. The amount of feeling that you get of realness is just through the roof. And what I mean by that is Coach Masters came out to another game, and then I see him and I get to talk to him. I didn't get to really talk much because I was only there for the pregame for a very little bit and postgame, and they're so into the game. But when you see those people outside of the big game and they talk to you, is the surreal moment that makes you go, man, I got to do something I love, covering the sports. But I made such a great impact because we're honest, we're legit, we're not out here for clout, we're out here for these athletes and doing what we do. That it earned someone that had no reason to even care who the heck I was the next day. And all of a sudden they're having a relationship with you and an honest just talking. It's not and like getting to talk to Coach Held when it's not on a microphone or when it's not, and like just building that relationship of, he had the camp, the satellite camp. I got to go out there, talk to him, cover some of the kids. And then with Coach Masters he was out there watching Papio South and Creighton Prep. And just seeing him outside the element on a different thing, it's just different because everybody talks and sees the social media side of these coaches and athletes at that level to where they kind of forget how Coach Masters had his son with him, his little 10-year-old son. You know what I mean? Like, they forget that part of life. They think it's all about the big football, and that's all everybody remembers. But when you get to share those smaller schools and they remember you for what you've done, it's got to hit a little more home, especially from a kid that started in Sydney and is now in the biggest city in the state. And you have people knowing who you are, but not because you all of a sudden did something dumb and stupid and they remember you for you did the dumbest, thing that got on ridiculousness or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're remembering you because of everything you provided in the coverage you did. And
and I think that's easily one of the parts too, like leaving Kearney and everything. It was one of the nicest things that anyone can ever do for you is like tell you how much you're missed when you leave, because I replaced a guy who had been doing it for 25 years, and when I left, people. I still get it today when I go to a Kearney High game, or if I cover something, they're like, "Oh, well, we really wish you were like back here and stuff." And it's not because the person who's there isn't doing a fantastic job, but it's just because they grew to like you, and I grew to know those kids and their parents, and they appreciated that I was telling their stories, and they just grew attached to me because I kind of just became a part of their story because I was the one sharing it, and that was cool, and I like that. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. It is cool, and it's always funny to me. If me and my fiancée are like walking around Omaha or we're out and about, which isn't often, but if we see someone that like I've talked to or interviewed before, and it happened a lot when I was covering the Sydney games, these Sydney kids just won like a state semifinal and a comeback. They came back from 17 points down, and two of these kids came up and they're like, "Hey, congrats on your engagement, by the way." What? Like, bro, you're 18.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about me right now. Like, this is about you.
Yes.
But it's cool. Like, you're right. It's cool to have those moments, and it's one of those that like it's hard to balance because you don't want to be that spotlight in the moment, right? Like, it's about anyone else. It's about them. All that sort of stuff. But it's really cool that they chose to share the moment then with you and to make the moment about everyone that was there. It's cool.
Yeah, I had a surreal moment this week. I cover volleyball. I don't get to cover it as much because I'm busy with football and running a lawn business and DJing and all those things. But I covered a volleyball game where a former high school classmate said, "Hey, my stepdaughter's not getting any looks, but I also feel like I've done a disservice to her. I haven't shown her how to push stuff out. She's a senior. Her grades aren't the greatest. She's but she can play. She's played AAU, she's played travel, and she's not." So I go out and I cover it. And I cover it the same way, whether you ask me to cover, your daughter, not you, but, I don't just cover one
that'd
kid.
Be bad if...
No, but I don't just cover one kid. I still cover it the same. And everything that we put out is genuine and legit. It's not like we're sitting here looking for stuff to just throw out. Like, a kid probably could be the worst kid, and you're not out there talking about how great he is. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't get the video done because volleyball is a way different beast than football because a kid could hit the ball so many times in a whole game. And I'm not saying you're looking to get all of them, but when they're the setter and they're the ones making some big key hits, you want to make sure to get them. So month goes by, I put it together. And she had no college offers, no even college talk, thinking she was going to go. She signed she signed up in Storm Lake and Buena Vista. Buena Vista. And he reached out and he just said, "Thank you." And it's like those moments for these athletes, all I did was in the building. It isn't like I did anything special. I didn't highlight just her. I did in her video, but I wasn't there just to highlight her. But when you get those people that get back to you, I had the kid from Norris, Greenfield. Mm-hmm. His dad posted because of the video that I created, and it is what it is. But he said, because of that, and I also put multi-sport athlete because he is hell of a basketball player and hell of a football player. His son had more looks by both colleges, even in a football season. And it's like those little stories for a Class C, and this girl was from a Class C as well. Those stories you can't make up or rebrand or redo. Those are the things that even push the coverage that I love to do. When you look at your coverage and you look at all the stuff that you have to do, what's like your favorite moment in the whole thing is number one. And then I'll also get you out of here because, of course, we're coming to your time.
Of course.
What do people have to understand about how hard it is with what we do, time management, and the fact of it's also hard on relationships on that part, because you are probably on your phone more than you need to be. You're on the computer more than you want to be. But you know that these are important to the who Austin is and the brand of who Austin's going to be. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't do these things, will you be who you want to be when it comes to the job that you love?
So to answer your first question, recency bias has this one, but I probably have to go there. I have two moments that come up to mind. The first is from state volleyball this past year. Erin Heath took over for Holdridge, and she's a first-year head coach. Holdridge went all the way to the C1 state championship match.
Yes.
I covered Holdridge for my first job outside of KRVN. So I was there for a year, and the person who took over the head coaching job at the time when I was there was actually my best friend from high school. So Ryan Berner took over that job. He then moved back to Sidney to take that head coaching job, and Erin was his assistant. So a friend of my friend. And I got to know Erin very well over those 3 days because I got to talk to her every single time, and I made it a point to talk to her. And being able to see some of those Holdridge people back again, and they hadn't seen me since 2020, 2021. And they were all so appreciative. They were all saying about how cool it was to see where I had gotten to, how it started at KUVR and Holdridge and all that stuff. And it was very cool to see that. But again, it was awesome to be able to share those stories and to get closer to someone that I didn't know, but by periphery was also, again, a friend of mine because of the relationship that I had from Sidney, then translated back to Holdridge, that then went back to where I was covering for prep. So that was kind of like a full circle, really, really cool moment. And then obviously, I was able to announce her as the winner of the Coach of the Year. That was really cool. So it was like, double down on the circles. I guess to your second question, the most difficult part of this is definitely screen time. How much time that I spend either on the road, on my phone, on a computer, and the balance of trying to be a master of everything, but knowing that you need to improve upon it all as well. You have to showcase yourself as a knowledgeable reporter. You have to showcase yourself as someone who knows the backstory without probably ever knowing about it. And the one thing that I try to consciously do, especially when I'm tired, it's a game that, third game of the week, or it's a game that I'm out traveling for out and about, or maybe it's just a game I'm not excited for, which admittedly it does happen. If I'm going out to a game and I need to go talk to someone, or I need to have an interview for a kid because it's a big game chain, or that's just part of whatever we're looking for, I try to remind myself that, that person also has a story too. I'm here for that person. When they were 6 years old and they were running, tires in the backyard, they're here for this moment right now. So I need to be more in the moment for them because of that. Just because my day's been long doesn't mean that they don't deserve that too. And it's cool when you see their teammates gather up, or maybe they're a little bit nervous to talk to you, but especially when we hammer out all of these one-on-one interviews where I'm not even on screen, it's just me and my phone, and I'm pointing a phone at a kid that's doing state basketball or state volleyball or something, and we're just getting 1,000 interviews for it, right? It's so fun to see when they're so nervous and they get down and they're like, oh my God, that was actually kind of fun. And they run off, and maybe I was the only media person that talked to them, maybe. Maybe they had a couple of other, maybe they're the most popular person, maybe they're not. Maybe they're shocked that I talked to them. Maybe they're really seasoned and all that other stuff. But it's so cool to be able to then to go back and look at our posts, especially when it gets up on Facebook or Instagram, and all the comments are filled up with be like, oh my God, whatever. Taryn, this is fantastic. Oh, Nathan, I can't yes. Whoever. It's cool to go back and look at those. And I try to remind myself of that it was, and I really appreciate those the most because I'm never on screen at all. I hate when I hate when I have to tag myself in a photo or in a post or something because just because I'm in the video. Because it's not about me. Yes. I'm talking to this person, right?
Yes.
This interview was set up because you wanted to talk to me, right?
Yes.
And I want all those interviews to be about the person that I'm interviewing and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I appreciate the most. Just seeing the flood of comments that come down, especially when it's a big moment for someone. And Erin's a great example of that because I go back and I look through those every once in a while because just seeing the outpour of support for her and for that program, it was really cool. It was just really cool to see.
Well, I greatly appreciate your time. I greatly appreciate the journey of, little Sidney, Austin, all the way to Omaha. But if you have to get out of here on this and you say, what's your ultimate dream job, and who have you looked up to make that the job that you want to go do?
Back in the day, I would have said a voice of the Huskers for Husker football would have been easy. I haven't done as much radio play-by-play as I need to be doing to get to that goal now. I had this conversation not too long ago with Sasha, our sports director, because she asked me the same thing. She was like, what do you want to do? What do you think is your dream job? I don't know. I still can't figure it out. I'm hoping that maybe as arrogant as it may come across, I just hope that someone sees what I'm doing and they recognize kind of the things that I am capable of and the amount of care and respect that I have for the field in which I'm in, the people that I talk to, and the teams and the athletes and the stories that we cover, that someone would be like, I get him, and I want him, and I don't care for whatever it is. That's one reason why I like it here at Hurrdat, because that's the vibe I get. That they're like, not everyone gets me, and that's totally fine, but I think everybody is like, you get it, and you get why you're here, and we want you to be here because you do a good job here. I'll be here as long as I need to be, as long as that always stays the case. And if someone else comes along and is like, if it's like the example I shared earlier, like if the Carolina Panthers call, favorite NFL team, and they go, we need a sideline reporter, we need someone to run around and just like ask dumb questions, we have, summer camp stuff, we just want you to go do this stuff. Hell yeah, man, I'm in. Sounds great. I'll do it. I'll jump at any opportunity. But I couldn't tell you what a dream job is, because it just feels like, tell you what, my dream job, when I was going out and I covered that Sidney game and then I got to drive out to Howells and I got to cover Howells Dodge St. Mary's right after that, that was my dream job that night. So I don't know. It changes every time.
It's amazing when you're in this field. You could be someone like Austin, and that's why I like to sometimes bring Hurrdat support on here, I would say, because I say support because he has so many names to his title. He just don't have them next to his name. Producer, field reporter, someone who makes the media. It's just so crazy. But they get to do it because of you guys, the athletes, the parents, the people who actually look at what we do, and we greatly appreciate you. Like I said, I appreciate you coming out, but also just sharing the real deal of what social media to work in the field means. It's not easy. It's not for everybody. You have great times. There's stuff that people don't know about us on the backside because we always are smiling, giving the best view for you. But remember, just if this could help one person, one parent, look at their son or daughter who might be in this field and take one nugget away, just know that if you have and live big dreams and you act like you're supposed to be there, you could be anywhere you want to be. And I think Austin is a great example of never giving up and always looking to do something, never saying no. And it could be a bad thing, but he's made it into what he loves to do. So once again, follow us, Wired Axcess, Hurrdat Sports. We'll see you next time.